What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi back here with my man Eric Sheets-Haber for another NFL playoff weekend. We are past the wild card stage. We are on to the next round. We have an interesting slate. We are going to be talking about it pretty much just strictly from a DFS point of view, although we can talk about who we think is going to win too, because I know there's a lot of you straight sports bettors that watch these shows. Sheets, what are you thinking so far? What is your sort of overview of the slate? And is there anything stands out just from a betting angle that you think would be like a logical bet that you might want to throw out there?
No. Again, I'm really as far as had enough experience in sports betting to know that there's very, very little edge to be found unless you're really, really good at it. And I'm not that great of a sports bettor, and I don't spend the time necessary to render good opinion. So I'm kind of the opinion that it's kind of a random walk. So if I gave you my sports betting opinion, I swear to you it would be no better than a coin flip. So unfortunately, I have nothing for you as far as that goes. But as far as the slate goes, I do have a couple of opinions on this. First of all, I think that there are ways to make yourself different that are good, and I think there are ways to make yourself different that are really, really bad on this slate. And the other thing I will say is that the tight end position is going to be interesting because I think a lot of builds are going to end up going to tight ends, and probably for good reason. I mean, you have maybe two of the top 5 receivers on the whole slate as being tight ends, so it makes a Draftkings as opposed to FanDuel for kind of an interesting situation, because if you did want to go a route other than 2 tight ends, I think you're differentiating in that way too. So I do think that for a little 4-game slate, it's I think there are a lot of ways that you can go wrong, and we want to avoid that.
Absolutely. Let's get into the first game, Minnesota, San Francisco, tomorrow afternoon at 1:35 West Coast, 4:35 your time, East Coast. Okay, so I guess first off, like what are your levels of interest of this? I'm not going to stack this game, but I have interest in 4 or 5 pieces. How about you?
All right. So since you said that, let
let
me share my screen, and then you can just tell me what you think, regardless of what you just said, based on what's on my screen right here.
Wow.
It's so fun. We actually didn't collude before, and I'm not going to play this exact lineup, but it's so funny that you mentioned that just before I put my screen up here. So like for me, I can't really talk game by game without in context of the slate, right? So you're going to have a couple of passing attacks that are going to be pretty highly attacked here, that being the Kansas City passing game and also the Green Bay passing game. The Kansas City passing game mostly, well, not mostly, because Mahomes is just so good and Houston's not really good defensively. And also Green Bay, because you know where all those targets are going with Aaron Jones going over to Devontae Adams and whatever. So San Francisco, for me, this game turned out to be where I wanted to be a little different, because I do think that the projections are close enough, and I think the ownership, you get a little bit of a break where you can play Garoppolo with either Sanders or Samuel or Kittle or 2, and I'm not going to play 3 of them, right? And you have kind of natural bringbacks between Thielen and Diggs, where you can go ahead and, pick one of them. I wouldn't go 2 of them, really. I don't know if you're going to get that many points out of this. But this is actually my favorite game to be just a little bit different. We'll get to the other one in a minute. But this is probably my favorite spot to be a little different than the field with respect to at least where the passing game is going to come from. And then as you see in this lineup, what this naturally does, it goes chalky at the running back positions. But what it does is it, in doing so, sort of fades the Green Bay and Kansas City passing game at the same time. So this was actually my first idea, is to build along the San Francisco passing game.
All right, I like it. It's interesting. It's not the route that I'm going, but it's weird because I did find myself with interest in multiple receivers from San Francisco and from Minnesota that I had the same lineups, that I didn't want to play the quarterback for some reason. So it's a little bit tricky. Who are your highest levels? I mean, I know we have your current build up there, but like, it seems to me like Deebo Samuel and Emmanuel Sanders are both strong plays. I'm going to err way higher on the Emmanuel Sanders part. I know people love Deebo Samuel. I just think that Samuel is I'm just going to take the guy who I think is the better receiver, I guess, even though they're both good receivers. I don't feel anyone in this matchup. I think that they both have upside. I mean, I don't know. I guess between the two of them, I'm pretty close now. But if you look at the game log, I would just think that the ownership would have been higher on Samuel than we have it projected right now. But neither are so high to where I'm definitely want to be ahead of the field on those two guys. I want to be behind the field a little bit on George Kittle. I love George Kittle as a player. I think that the better play at tight end is Kelsey this week. And I think this is one of the toughest matchups for tight ends in football. It's just the problem is George Kittle, like statistically, according to Pro Football Focus, is the best player in football. So
is
maybe,
that true?
Yeah, they actually had him as the number 1 rated player in all of football. He's amazing. He's a great blocker. He's a great everything. I just don't see myself wanting to take the super mega chalk from that tight end. I'm going to be more on the Sanders side, the Samuel side. There's 2 spots I'm going to be way off, and that's going to be Mostert and Kittle. Not so interested in those guys in this game. I think Mostert is more of a gamble than people are realizing just because he's broken a few touchdowns. I actually think that I would be just as likely to play Tevin Coleman as I would Mostert as of right now. I know that sounds weird. Not that I'm going to play Tevin Coleman, but I probably would be around 10% on those guys. And Mostert is just because in case he goes off, I'll keep a couple lineups.
Well, why not? Why aren't you playing Tevin Coleman? Because that's another, I think, really, really great idea is that, as I said, there are ways to kind of go wrong and ways to kind of go, right, I think. And I think that's actually one of the things I was going to bring up is, so again, I hate to not go game by game, but you have these running backs that are going to project to be pretty good, right, from a value perspective, and you have other guys that are going to have good, kind of raw point stuff like Derrick Henry and Cook or whatever. And I think that there are going to be people taking shots at some of these other running backs like Carlos Hyde and other, just try to be different. And I think that your idea of Tevin Coleman or even Matt Breida, you know what I mean, just to have just direct leverage off of who you think might be a kind of a chalkier play. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like Mostert at chalk because, look, he has a lot of his points have come from his touchdown upside, which is, that's good and that's bad, right?
Well, but it's not like he's guaranteed to get the goal line carries.
That's what I mean. You know what I mean? It's so if a lot of his points have come from touchdowns, it's not so easy to get those touchdowns. So if you're going to want to get leverage on him, I think there are 2 ways to do it. One, again, you could do a real pure ultra leverage play, but just taking, Breida or Coleman or what I'm doing, just take the passing game, whatever it is. So I'm with you on the anti-Mostert thing. That's for sure. And
I think the Coleman thing is really sharp. Not sharp. Let me rephrase that. That's a terrible. Put my own thing. I think it's a very sneaky, and it's not this is a weird narrative. I mean, it's just that this guy 2 years ago took this coach to the Super Bowl and should have and won it. Was going to be the Super Bowl MVP, but then they just forgot to win it and decided to lose it the last second. Blow a 25-point lead against the Patriots.
Who are you talking about? Are you talking about Lynch now?
Talking about Tevin Coleman, what he did with Shanahan as the coordinator.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me that Marshawn Lynch was about to win the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
No,
and they didn't let him win it.
No, Tevin Coleman.
Okay, I thought that was narrative. Okay, sorry.
No, they did not let him win it. Tevin Coleman had a monster game. I'm just
okay.
I just am saying, in a playoff game, don't you think when you have a running back rotation, it really is a rotation. It may be in the playoff game or the biggest games you might trust in, or let's say you're up big and give a lead. Maybe you're going to play a guy who's one of your, who's like your guy. You wanted him when you came over from Atlanta. This is one of the guys you wanted to get. You just happen to have 2 other great running backs also. So I like.
Hey, 3, 5, and 5%. Let's 5% ownership. Let's rock.
Okay. I mean, I'm just making this. I'm selling the case for him because I just think he's kind of interesting.
No problem with that at all.
Yeah. Definitely will be well ahead of the field from him. But and then on the Minnesota side, I'm kind of interested. I really like the price for Stephon Diggs. There's no narrative here that anybody's missing this is a tough secondary. They're not as good as they were earlier in the year, and I think you're going to see Minnesota having to throw the ball. So they're going to make plays. They're going to get Diggs involved anyway. I don't mind the price for Adam Thielen. I mean, look, we just saw nobody play Adam Thielen at this price in a perceived tough matchup, very tough matchup, with one of the best corners, arguably the guy who had been the best corner in football over the last couple of years. And he destroyed it. He won the slate. Why couldn't he do it again? And yeah, the matchup's tough, but first of all, I believe a lot more in the Minnesota defense than people think. I think this game stays close for a while. I think San Francisco wins this game, but I don't think this is like a smash. Like, there's talent on this Minnesota team other than Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook is the other one. I probably am just going to be slightly above the field on all these guys, except for I may make a little bit of a stand and play a ton of Diggs. I just feel like it feels like a spot where they're going to need to rely on him.
Yeah, so since you asked for my opinion on the games, I will give you my opinion on the games. This is just from 40 plus years of watching sports and watching NFL football. I've just seen this a lot where these teams, these 1 and 2 seeds with their first round buys, right? They just sit there and they're waiting and getting rested, and these other teams, play the week before. They come out the next week and they're in what looks to be an overvalued favorite, and you're like, oh my God, these guys are getting 8 points, 9 points from these guys, and they just get wrecked. You know what I mean? So my initial instinct is that all these favorites coming off the buys just destroy these teams. And even though you would think, oh my God, Minnesota's better than you think. Look what they did last week against the Saints or whatever it is. Having that buy, especially at this point of the season, is really, really big. And I just have a feeling that it's going to be kind of rough on Minnesota. But that's again just my 50.001% opinion. That's all.
Mm-hmm. And I think I like San Francisco to win the game. I don't really want to. I would not choose to bet on this game. I would think that Minnesota keeps it fairly close though, and I think I would bet the over before I would bet anything else.
One other thing I would mention, again, sports betting wise, about like NFL, is there was like a whole period of time where in the Super Bowls, like the favorites would win and they would cover by a lot, and even though the spreads would seemingly just totally out of whack, they'd be way too big of a favorite. What happens in football, again, this is just my opinion, this is why this happened, is it's a very physical sport, and you have a whole season of like doing its damage to you. And when a team gets down and you have no more games left to play, you just kind of give up, and then you just end up getting rolled. So that is my natural lean towards these favorites in these playoff games. But let's stick to something that we pretend to have an edge over. So let's go back to you want to go to the Tennessee-Baltimore game?
Yeah, just one last thought. I do think that it's pretty crazy that no one's going to play Kyle Rudolph at this cheap price and no ownership. Like, there's going to be no ownership on him. I just think you got to take, like, he's the safety valve for if they try and take away the big plays, which they're going to do. You'd think that Kyle Rudolph could have a game here, and at 3.4, nobody's going to play him, and it just seems like wrong to me. So
you see why, right? I mean, because
I totally see why.
Because the position scarce. I mean, like those. To give up a slot of either Kittle or Kelce is rough business,
It's a tight, and yeah, not to mention there's other ones too.
Oh, there's others. Oh, Andrews. All right, so we'll get to this. All right, so Tennessee at Baltimore. Okay, we're now. So there's the best running backs on the slate are going to be just as pure points are probably going to be Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, and Lamar Jackson. Right? I'm considering the third best running back on the slate.
No, he's the best running back on the slate.
He is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just kind of ridiculous, and I think that he's gonna put on a show, and that's just gonna be the deal. If you want to, now again, I'm not gonna do it, but this is what people are doing because there are 4 games you have to pick it. I've heard some takes that you're gonna take a shot at a low-owned Marquise Brown, or lower-owned Marquise Brown, but how much lower-owned?
I think he's the chalk. I think he's a cat.
Oh, great. I mean, and then you have what's his name, Mark Andrews as your kind of sort of sneaky third tight end if you don't want to play the other 2 guys, I suppose. But I don't want to play Ingram, who might even be hurt. I just it's kind of weird. I'm just kind of off of this whole thing. I'll play Lamar Jackson maybe naked in some lineups just go for the 40 points or whatever he can get. You know what I mean? It's very possible. I don't know what he's going to do. But he's going to be put in charge of the game, and I think that's just kind of be the way the Baltimore is going to get their offense, the way it goes. And on the Tennessee side, I'm not going to talk you off of Derrick Henry, man. You know what I mean? Even if Baltimore brings back Ray Lewis and all these guys from Baltimore. I mean, this Derrick Henry's serious, man. He's like, he's tough business. It's kind of tough to tackle him. I don't care what your defense is. I don't care what's going on. And okay, if you get a terrible game script and you have to abandon the running game eventually, fine. That's certainly the argument against it. But until further notice, I mean, he's going to get the ball every time humanly possible. And God forbid he does get on a roll. I don't know what his ownership's going to be, but it's certainly going to be lower than the guys I have in my lineup right now between Aaron Jones and and Williams. It's a tough matchup, and the game script isn't so great, but I'm certainly not going to talk you off of Derrick Henry. And the way I would play this is I would play A.J. Brown. He's game script proof in that they're going to try to get him the ball, and if they can, they're getting crushed. They're going to get him the ball anyway. So I don't know if I'm going to go for the secondary guys like Corey Davis or Sharp or anybody like that. And again, with respect to Jonnu Smith, who might be some sneaky play or whatever. Again, I just don't know if I can afford to give up a really good tight end position unless I have a really good reason to. So for me, I mean, look, Baltimore defense, I suppose, going to be chalky, but Baltimore defense, Lamar naked, and maybe A.J. Brown. I wish I could be more fancy than that, and maybe some Derrick Henry.
Yeah, it's I really like this. I actually like a lot of spots in this game, so
yeah, go for it.
I love Lamar, obviously. Like, I think that I'm debating if he's my favorite quarterback, but I think he is. And I think that Marquise Brown makes a perfect easy spend down to saves the value that it costs you for paying that much a quarterback. And then you immediately switch over on the other side and you can run it back with Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown or Corey Davis. I prefer A.J. Brown at $6K. It's just way too cheap. Way too cheap. This is not an impossible matchup to beat this Baltimore secondary. This is not the best secondary in the NFL. They've been playing from months. It's going to be interesting. A.J. Brown's one of the most talented receivers in football. I really like this, taking a shot here with this game. I will definitely have a stack that goes just like I started with right there. And what's great is you're going to get A.J. Brown cheap at no ownership. Corey Davis, where they're going to have to throw the ball probably cheap at no ownership. It's just something I'm willing to take a shot on. I'm not going to play Tajay Sharp, but I do think I will play the other parts of the Tennessee passing game, including Jonnu Smith, who I think is just another one of those at 3.4. You can get different by playing these other tight ends and spending up elsewhere. It's the same reason why we'll get into it in a minute, but DeAndre Hopkins is going to be way too low owned for this slate, way too low owned. He should be one of the highest owned players in the slate, and he won't be because they're going to all pay for these tight end spots when we don't need to, because like we said, there are tight end options on the lower tier where let's say that one of Smith or they just get you one touchdown. They get you 10 points. You could be fine if you're playing DeAndre Hopkins at low ownership with the other guys, that other people aren't going to be playing, like DeAndre Hopkins and A.J. Brown. You know what I'm saying?
So when you said I'm going to take a shot at this, so what are you going to do on the – again, I wasn't quite clear where you were going on the Baltimore side. So you play Lamar?
It's basically Lamar to a combination of a little bit of Andrews and mostly Marquise Brown. I'm just going to play it. I know they have a bunch of receivers. I know he spreads the ball around. I just think that I mean, at this price, you need him to break one play, and he still probably gets enough targets in a playoff game. They haven't had a serious game in a while that they've even been competitive in. So, we haven't needed to see what they can get from Marquise Brown. I just think he's a great play at his price for his upside.
Yeah, the problem I'm getting in playing Lamar Jackson, I was thinking of an idea of playing Lamar Jackson kind of just naked and running it back with some Tennessee guys. I just feel as though that somebody of those four quarterbacks in those last two games is going to have a big game. You know what I mean? So it's going to be, so it's not like I'm getting that big of an edge over anybody by playing Lamar, and as long as I have coupled with not having a really good correlation play with him, I don't know. again, I've never had a lot of success with the naked quarterback anyway. So
here's the reason it's different for Lamar, because there's never been a running quarterback like Lamar. There's never been anything close. Michael Vick was the closest thing, and you have a guy who's legitimately in this offense. He's a legit threat to run for 3 touchdowns. I mean,
yeah,
and so he can win the slate without throwing the ball. Possibly.
Well, can he? I mean, like, what is he going to get if he runs 3 touchdowns? I guess 35, right?
He runs for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I mean, he's probably going to throw the ball a little bit. You're talking about possibly 40 when no other quarterback's going to get more than 25. Like, that's a huge edge.
Right.
So it's just his ability to win the position. But the cool thing is, on this slate, at least, we have another guy who can win the position too, by throwing for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns or something.
Well, let's talk about that because I'm not convinced. So let's go on to Houston, Kansas City, and this is going to be actually both of these last 2 games. I mean, you could honestly make cases for the offenses of all four of these games, all 4 of these sides in the last 2 games. And I'm starting with the Houston side. This is more like a Houston KC stack, but the reason why this lineup isn't good, I'll get to in a minute. But so the Kansas City offense is the play, right? They're against Houston. Houston's secondary is not that good, and Mahomes is just awesome. And you can go Hill, you can go Kelsey, you could be sneaky and play Sammy Watkins maybe or whatever it is. So tell me that Mahomes has honestly and really smashed any time recently. I mean, is he honestly that good? I mean, is he, since he's come back from his injuries?
That good? Is that a real?
No, that's why I'm asking you. I'm asking you, given the fact that he's going to be chalky, given the fact that and everybody's so confident that he's going to light these people up. Is that actually the case?
No, they're not. And it's not. People are not confident he's going to light them up. They're confident that Kansas City's going to light them up. He's not even the highest owned player. He's nowhere near. Like, everybody's going to play Damian Williams. He's going to be the highest owned player there is. Okay. And that's a fade worth talking about.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So if you're going to play Mahomes along with Hill and Kelsey, right? Makes sense, right? Hill and Kelsey, Hill and Watkins, whatever it is, that's going to be the way you stack. Is that going to be higher owned, less owned, or the same as Watson with Hopkins or what's his name, Fuller, and what's that, or both, or whatever? Which is going to be higher owned, and which has a better chance?
Side will be much higher.
Which one?
The KC side.
Okay, and which has a better chance of coming in?
KC side.
You think so?
They'd have a better chance, but I prefer, because of all the factors, and including ownership and situational football, which is what's going to be played in the postseason. You're going to see DeAndre Hopkins a ton in this game,
right? I mean,
I don't see
DeAndre Hopkins at 14. Look, remember, wide receivers are volatile, right? You have DeAndre Hopkins at 14%, and you have Tyreek Hill at 32%. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I do. I think that Hopkins is a much better play. And not to say that Tyreek Hill can't run for get 200 yards and whatever, but wide receivers remain volatile, and at higher ownership, if I can get DeAndre Hopkins for real at half the ownership of literally anybody on the face of the earth, and especially when you have a game script proof situation for them, I'd be more inclined to take them. I'm not convinced that Kansas City's defense can stop anybody either. So if given the choice, I don't know, you don't have to do this, but I would take the Houston side instead of the Kansas City side.
The problem with taking the Houston the quarterback part of it, I don't know if I agree with, because, and I'm okay, I like him, but it's hard to pick. I don't think Houston's going to win this game, and I think that KC will put up points. I think Houston will too, but I like the receivers partially because of how many shots they're going to get. They're going to get so many, and I love Will Fuller also. I love him. Yep. So I am all over the Houston passing game. I don't know if I'm going to be as high on Watson, just because I think that the game ends up being won the other way. But again, I'm going to have some of them. These are my 3 quarterbacks. I hate to say this, but there are 4 quarterbacks that I'm playing this week. And I I don't think I'm going to play anyone that's got the same color skin that I do. It just happens to shake out this way that these quarterbacks are just in awesome spots, and I love both of them, but I mostly am going to side with just the receiving game, and I prefer Mahomes a little bit, I would say, over Watson, but I certainly understand the case for Watson.
So tell me about this Williams guy. So he's projected to be a good play. He's very, very chalky. Does he fit within builds where you play other Kansas City guys, or is he more of a run out the clock kind of guy, or is he going to get some passing work and then also run out the clock? How is he profiling? What do we think of him?
He'll get catches, and that's how they play. You can't play for Andy Reid and not be a pass catching running back. So he's a pass catching running back as well as a running back. And then they'll also use, other guys like, I'm guessing they'll use Darwin Thompson and LaShawn McCoy, right? He's actually back for this game, I believe. Yeah, he's back and just projected to do very little. So you could certainly make a case for not fading him, but not maybe playing as much of him as people are going to.
I mean, it seems weird to me that I would say it seems weird. I mean, again, now I sound like just some idiot who's never played DFS before. Like it seems weird to me that like you get in a playoff game and what's his name and Mahomes is between Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I can make the case he's the two best quarterbacks in football. You can debate whatever, but they're two of the best quarterbacks in football. You can make the case that
I don't think there's
Mahomes, whatever. But Mahomes certainly has an incredible arm and he throws incredible passes and he's awesome. I mean, are we really going to be up watching playoff football and see Damian Williams like kind of control the game? I don't know. I mean, I don't at 45%.
He did the
probably. I mean, at 45% ownership, I mean, I'm certainly willing to fade him. I would. I'm not exactly sure where else to go with this, but
yeah, I will definitely be. As of right now, I'm below the field on Williams, but like if I was just building one lineup, he fits in well. I do like his projection, but also I don't mind playing him in this game because I'm going to run it back with DeAndre Hopkins or Will Fuller, who are going to be low owned. So I don't really need to worry as much about eating some chalk in those lineups. But also, I can also throw in a Sammy Watkins, you know what I mean, or who's going to have lower ownership. I'm not as into the Hill and Kelsey. I like Kelsey at high ownership even still. I like him. But I don't think I'm going to play as much Tyreek Hill at high ownership because there is also that path that they get up big. And yeah, sure, he might catch a couple bombs, but I'm willing to take that sacrifice for the workload of Hopkins. I prefer Hopkins straight up and he's cheaper, but straight up I prefer him versus Tyreek Hill.
So Sean Watson comes out, first possession, marches down the field, gets a touchdown. Okay, KC gets a field goal. Let's say Houston gets another field goal or touchdown. I mean, don't you just? I don't know. I just see. What's his name? Patrick Mahomes with 500 yards and Damian Williams just not even being a part of the game. But what do I know? You know what I mean? I just think that Mahomes give me the ball. Everybody go get open.
Might throw for 500 yards though without. So he might not even throw to Tyreek Hill. Last time I think he threw for that many yards.
That's true. That is true. So I'd be more than willing in a 4-game slate to fade Damian Williams. The reason why I have it like this is because these particular, not this build, but like the other build, like the San Francisco build, had no KC receivers. So that kind of is Damian Williams is almost kind of like leverage, you know what I mean, like on the Kansas City passing game in a way.
Well, that's funny because I prefer, and it's not just ownership related. While I prefer the Mahomes over Watson, I prefer the passing game of Houston because it's much more targeted.
Right.
And including to the tight end, like even you could throw in Fells as one of the other low-owned tight end cheapies. The more we talk about this slate, this is what I'm leaning towards. I want the volatility of these receivers. I want to have the receiver in my flex spot. I want to put some of these cheap tight ends as a differentiator. It just feels good. I'm telling you.
Now, what about the if Jordan Akins, is he back?
He might be back.
Because if he's back, I don't. I mean, again, I think at that point going to Fells is just like kind of asking for it.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, but I agree with you conceptually. And again, I don't know as much about the NFL or whatever. And DFS, I felt myself kind of average with the NFL, but I do know about how variance works and just chalk wide receivers to me are just kind of asking for it. I'd much rather go for volatility and go a little lower owned and take my shots there. That's why, again, I wouldn't mind eating a little bit of the running back chalk and fading more of the wide receiver chalk. So that's
but what I'm saying is play more wide receivers that are not chalky. That's what I'm going.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
That's where I'm prioritizing over the running back spot. I did want to mention it in before we get to the last game.
Yeah.
I really like Duke Johnson. I think that he's like one of the most interesting plays on the slate.
Yeah, for me, again, he falls within that group of guys that I feel are sucker plays for me. Like those like guys like and he's in one of my lines, guys like Travis Homer, guys that are just, real dart throw type guys that I think will just get me zero sometimes. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if they have that kind of huge upside to make up for the times they get three. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm wrong, but I think of all those guys, you take Duke Johnson, at least he's got the game script working for him. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm looking at, yeah.
Yeah.
I could see him getting – but the only problem is that Watson doesn't like to throw the ball to the running backs as much. But then again, neither did Cam Newton until he had Christian McCaffrey, although Duke Johnson is not exactly Christian McCaffrey.
Maybe they'll have that guy that caught that ball last week. Who's that guy? That was he, quarterback? That caught the ball in overtime, the running back? Who was that guy?
Oh, yeah. I
don't even know who that is.
I don't know to go to over. Wait, which one?
The guy who caught the ball in overtime when Watson got hammered and they threw the ball to the guy in the flat and he went all the way down to the
yeah.
Whoever that is. What's he even doing in the game in overtime?
I don't even know. That was so weird.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to Seattle, Green Bay and finish this thing off. What are we looking at? Okay, so I think that on the Seattle side is where you're going to have a lot of your decisions to make here. Like if you're not playing the other game, I think you could argue that Seattle is an interesting way to go, passing wise.
Well, sure. I mean, Russell Wilson's always a place you could go.
It's a good. I sort of like the spot. I think that actually against, they're probably going to have to throw the ball to stay in the game. They haven't really been able to establish the run they wanted to since without Carson. I'm totally into not playing their running game much, although I love Marshawn Lynch as a human being, so I'm probably going to play him a little bit, but nothing too serious. I'm much more interested in the passing game, and I really think, as much as I was on Metcalf as a Metcalf guy, I think this might be a Tyler Lockett week, and another guy who's low owned. This is my problem. I like all these high receivers, so I can avoid the KC ones a little bit for these lower owned guys, and I really like the idea of playing this passing game.
Who do you like more, Tyler Lockett or A.J. Brown?
Tyler Lockett. That's a tough question, but Tyler Lockett.
Yeah. The other guy from the Seattle side, again, I brought up the Travis Homer, whatever, as a possible punt, but he's, again, for me, I've just never had any luck with guys like that. You could go, if you really wanted to get leverage again in that tight end spot, you could go to Jacob Hollister on Seattle. He's been, getting a decent amount of work from Wilson. So again, if you didn't want to go ultra chalk with the tight ends, you could, like you said, like you mentioned, Kyle Rudolph as a possibility. If you wanted to go to Jacob Hollister, you could try something like that also. But the obvious thing about this game is on the Green Bay side. Rodgers is really just kind of locked in to Devontae Adams, and he is he has a huge market share of targets. Just like what's his name, just like Hopkins. And it's just kind of maybe the skill set is not the same, but the target share is very, very similar. So he's going to be looking at him a lot. Aaron Jones, it's a little concerning because what's his name is back, Williams. But I like to think that they've kind of settled on Aaron Jones as the top option, but who knows? I really don't know. He's going to be chalky Aaron Jones, and he's in my initial build right here. But I certainly see ways that he fails. I think a lot of people are going to go to the secondary wide receiver position on Green Bay as a way to just be different or to save money or whatever. And I think a lot of people not, I don't know, a lot of people will go to that
really a secondary receiver though.
Like Alan Lazard, I think people are going to play.
But MBS would probably actually be.
Oh, because I was going to suggest that one. Okay, so I thought that Lazard was going to end up being the popular of the
Lazard will have more ownership for sure. I just don't even think that's what I'm actually agreeing with you before you were making your point. I think MVS is a better play than
okay. Okay. So if you wanted to, again, just kind of get, I don't even know what build you'd make where you would need a 3K guy. Okay. I guess you could. I mean, you'd end up playing, if you wanted to play like Derrick Henry and Cook or really have the higher price wide receivers, and then you could go to Allison, like you said, you want another wide receiver in the flex or something like that. Mm-hmm. Maybe a 3K Allison can be a dart throw or something like that, or certainly as part of a Green Bay stack, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sort of biased here because MVS won me a ton of money.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I think that I think it's like if you want to look at it, maybe you can call it the same play. Like he had missed some games because he was banged up, and I mean, he had 7 targets last week. He's 3K versus 4,500 for Lazard, and going to be no unowned. I think like taking a stand on a guy like MVS and just hoping he gets in the end zone, which is really possible, and there's a lot more upside on that. He's a big play threat. I mean, he had 130 yards on 2 receptions earlier this year in a game. So I really like the idea of going that route. I'm not as into Rodgers. He's fine. I just feel like that everybody else has like a little bit of rushing upside or like a 500-yard throwing game like Mahomes, and even a little probably rushing upside there too for at least a touchdown or something. I'm not going to play him, but I do really like – it's hard for me not to like Devontae even at high ownership. But I'm actually happier to eat the ownership on Devontae than I am on Aaron Jones. I don't like Aaron Jones as much as everybody else this week. I actually kind of like I will have the same amount probably of Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, which won't be very much. And it's another place I'm differentiating. So this week is going to go really well or really poorly for me because I'm definitely on a different page than where the ownership is.
Well, let me ask you this. As far as the, I want to say the chalky wide receivers, I guess the best way I can describe it is as far as the studdish wide receivers, I mean, who do you like more between, if you had to rank Devontae Adams, all things being included, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and DeAndre Hopkins.
Tyreek Hill wouldn't be on that list.
Okay.
I think that both Devontae Adams and I think that it would be Adams, Hopkins, Brown. Like I could immediately put in a receiving core of Adams, Hopkins, Brown, and then either take a shot on MVS or one of the cheap tight ends, and then I can play. And I've also got some cheap running backs that I like I mentioned Duke Johnson. So I can do things with that build. I can also throw in Stephon Diggs in the flex and then go low at tight end, or play Will Fuller and play low tight end. And then there's a lot of ways you could do it. I'm also okay with cheap defenses this week, which is, like you just take your shots in the playoffs. So playing the cheapest defense can actually just make that always kind of makes sense anyway. But I personally would, if there's one defense that I would be going after, it would be Minnesota, and I always play them. I think they have one of the best defenses in football. I think they're really close to the Niners, and I don't see them getting played much. And also, the one thing we absolutely know about the Niners, as much as they like to run the ball, Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, is the second worst quarterback in the NFL in terms of when he's pressured throwing interceptions. Oddly, Aaron Rodgers is number 1. But it's just kind of an interesting spot. You have an unowned defense at 2.7. Like, that's how you can sometimes win these things. I mean, if you get a obviously weird defensive scores or whatever, but if Minnesota can put the pressure on Garoppolo, like, there's a chance. Like, we've seen this guy throw off his back foot a lot and throw some picks. You get one pick six, and all of a sudden you're running away with it if none of the other defenses do anything. And honestly, Minnesota's defense, I think, is as good a defense in a good spot as any other defense except for Baltimore. And I would actually think they're potentially even better than Baltimore in this spot.
Yeah, I'm going to take the worst defense of them all. I'm probably going to go down to 2,000 and play the Texans.
The Texans, I mean, yeah, absolutely. That's fine. You need a 700. But if you want to play, some of the other –
Not even that also, but I mean, correlating in a way with you have a guy that's going to has the possibility to throw for 500 yards. you have a guy that's scrambling to the left, throwing to the right, doing whatever. And whenever a guy goes back to pass, I mean, it's always possible that something bad could happen. And it's also always possible that something good could happen for him too. So
I'll take the guy that never throws a pick, the guy that always throws a pick versus the guy that never throws a pick.
I don't blame you.
All right, man. Well, I'm just gonna real quick before I go through my my highlights. What are your sort of sum up of how you're attacking this?
Okay, so interestingly, you would never think this, but the most important take I learned from you on this, you just might not even believe it, but it's literally just the last thing you said. It just went right through my brain. Is that it's so funny. Is that I think the Minnesota defense actually is really, really sharp, because not only is it cheap, not only is it going to be low owned, but you do have Garoppolo throwing it off his freaking back foot, and anything is possible, and Baltimore's defense is going to be 50% owned minimum, I think. I would hope. And I think that I think Minnesota defense is a really, really good play. I think everything else, again, my advice to you would be to everybody else, is to not save money for the sake of saving money at some of these positions, because some of these guys you don't want to miss out on some of this upside. You don't want, you know what I mean? Like, I think that you have to have some of these good wide receivers, like DeAndre Hopkins at 13%. You want to know the truth? I think that's a colossal joke. I mean, I think that he's one of the best wide receivers in football, much less on the freaking slate. And on the one hand, if they're competitive, sure, I want Hopkins, but dude, I remember just a couple of weeks ago they were down 28-0. I'm like, okay, now I know I'm gonna smash out of these guys. You know what I mean? So I think that he, for me, would be just. I think 12% is a joke. I think the reason why it's 12% is because it's expensive, where you have other guys like Watkins and Brown, and the reason why they're 30% is they're 4,400 or whatever. But I'll take my chances.
Yeah, Hopkins is my highest owned player on the slate.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Assuming the ownership stays similarly. It's one of those spots where I'm just going, I don't get it, guys. What are you missing? And I actually don't think it's that far off. I think he's probably gonna end up closer to 20, but it is there. I can see why he's where he is, because everyone's going to side with Adams. I'm just going to go in order here of my highest owned players: DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, Tyler Lockett, AJ Brown, Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, Dalvin Cook, Emmanuel Sanders, Will Fuller, Adam Thielen, Sammy Watkins, Corey Davis.
And since you didn't use him, and I don't want to duplicate. And since I don't want to duplicate your lineups, maybe I ought to go to DK Metcalf. That was kind of a joke.
Oh, so, that's funny.
Sorry. He's the only guy we didn't mention in the whole slate, by the way.
All right. I haven't heard much about that Bachelor stuff lately, but you're right. They're not giving him the money right now yet.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, bud. Hey, man, good job. Look forward to – hope everybody wins. Let us know. Give us some good stories this weekend. And let's make some money, guys. So hit us up on Twitter.
Hey, and everybody, you know what you can wish me? You can wish me a happy birthday tomorrow.
Oh, my goodness. Happy early birthday to Sheets.
Thank you very much.
I was going to wait till the actual birthday to say it.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, bud. I'll talk to you soon. And, guys, good luck.
Okay.